You're lying in bed at 11 p.m. Your phone screen is the only light in the room. You've been on it for the last 2 hours, scrolling through photos of people you went to school with, reading replies on a thread that has nothing to do with you, watching someone you've never met talk about their day. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, something quiet happens. You feel alone. Not the kind of alone where the house is empty and the silence is deafening. A different kind. The kind that's harder to name, because technically, you weren't alone at all. You were surrounded by voices, by faces, by the constant noise of other people's lives. But surrounded isn't the same as connected. And that distinction, that tiny devastating gap between the two, is what this is about. The loneliness of the 21st century doesn't look like loneliness. That's the problem. For most of human history, loneliness was obvious. It was the shepherd on the hill, the prisoner in the cell, the widow in the empty house. Loneliness had a shape you could point to. It meant the absence of people. And when people returned, when the door opened, when the village gathered, the loneliness dissolved. Then something changed. We built a world where people are never truly absent. Where you can text someone at 3 a.m. and they might actually respond. Where your feeds are full of birthdays and babies and beach vacations, and someone is always talking somewhere. We removed the conditions that used to produce loneliness. And in doing so, we made it almost impossible to recognize when it was still happening. Because here's the thing about loneliness that no one talks about enough. It was never really about the number of people around you. It was always about something deeper. Something to do with being known. Being understood. Having your inner world meet someone else's, and having them actually receive it. That part, the part that actually matters, the internet has never quite figured out how to deliver. We solved the logistical problem of loneliness without touching the emotional one. Think about what we have access to right now. Billions of people, reachable in seconds. Video calls that let you look someone in the eye from across the world. Group chats that never go quiet. Comment sections, DMs, voice notes. The infrastructure of human connection, built bigger and faster than anything our ancestors could have imagined. And yet, researchers, therapists, and ordinary people across the world keep describing the same quiet epidemic. A feeling that, despite all of this, something is missing. That they're engaged but not fulfilled. Present but not seen. Busy connecting but still somehow alone. This is the paradox at the heart of modern life. More communication than ever. Less genuine connection than we need. It sounds like a contradiction. But once you start looking closely, it's completely logical. Here's why. Human connection isn't made of information. It's not made of messages or likes or knowing what someone had for dinner last Tuesday. It's made of something slower. Something that requires time and discomfort, and the willingness to sit with another person in their uncertainty, and have them sit with you in yours. The internet accelerated everything. But deep connection is one of the few things in human life that doesn't respond well to acceleration. You can know everything about someone's life and still know nothing about their soul. There's a concept in psychology called social snacking. The idea is that passive forms of social engagement, scrolling someone's profile, watching a live stream, reading posts from a person you admire, can temporarily satisfy the same impulse that drives us toward real human connection. They're like social calories. They take the edge off the hunger without actually feeding you, which is fine, in small doses. The problem is what happens when snacking becomes the entire diet. Because these interactions don't give us what we're actually starving for. They give us stimulation. They give us novelty. They give us the sensation of being near other people. But they rarely give us the experience of being truly seen by another person. And that experience, psychologists increasingly argue, is what human beings are most fundamentally wired to need. There's also something worth understanding about how loneliness works neurologically. The brain doesn't just make you feel bad when you're socially isolated. It activates threat responses. The same systems that light up when you're physically in danger start responding when you feel socially excluded. Loneliness, at the biological level, reads like a warning signal. But here's where it gets complicated in the modern context. Those threat systems evolved in a world where social isolation meant something concrete. It meant you were separated from your group. Left behind. Vulnerable. The response was calibrated to push you back toward real human contact. Now those same systems are being activated in people who are technically surrounded by social contact all day, but whose interactions are thin enough, surface level enough, that the deeper need still goes unmet. The alarm is ringing. But there's no obvious reason to believe it. Because you have 847 followers. Because you talked to 7 people today. Because you're not alone, not in any way you can point to. And so you dismiss the alarm. And the loneliness goes unexamined. The brain raised a warning. The screen offered a reason not to listen. There's a particular quality to the way we present ourselves online. It's curated, selective. We post the version of ourselves we want to be seen. Not always dishonestly. Sometimes the version we share is genuinely part of who we are. But it's rarely the whole picture. The 3 a.m. doubts don't make it to the grid. The conversations that ended badly don't get a caption. The days that felt meaningless, ordinary, or quietly sad, those are usually the days you don't post at all. And the people looking at your profile don't know that. They're comparing their interior life, their doubts, their chaos, their unfinished thoughts, to your exterior performance. And you're doing the same thing back to them. Everyone is alone with the parts of themselves they don't share. And everyone is watching everyone else's highlight reel and feeling, somewhere in the background, like they're somehow falling short. But the curation runs deeper than just what we post. It affects the way we communicate, the way we edit ourselves in real time. You type something honest, then delete it and replace it with something more acceptable. You don't call because a text feels safer, lower stakes, more controllable. You react with an emoji because it's easier than finding the words. We've built a communication ecosystem that rewards being palatable over being real. And in that environment, the weird, messy, unresolved parts of us, the parts that actually need to be witnessed by another human being, quietly learn to stay hidden. So you end up with a life that looks full from the outside. Messages coming in. A social presence. A feed that's active. And something inside you that's never quite said what it actually means. We've become very good at being visible. Terrible at being known. There's a kind of loneliness that's especially hard to carry, because it comes with guilt attached. You think, I have friends. I have people I can text. I have a life with things in it. Why do I feel like this? What's wrong with me? And because you can't justify the feeling, you push it down. You pick up your phone. You open an app. You stay busy inside a screen because the alternative, sitting with the quiet, sitting with the feeling, feels worse. The internet, to its credit, is extraordinarily good at filling silences. But silences aren't always the problem. Sometimes the silence is trying to tell you something. Sometimes it's the only honest part of your day, the moment when, stripped of distraction, you actually feel the shape of what's missing. And when we fill every silence, we stop being able to hear that. There's also something that happens over time when your primary mode of connection is digital. You start to lose tolerance for the inefficiencies of real human contact. The awkward pauses. The conversations that go in unexpected directions. The slowness of being with someone in person, where you can't edit yourself, where there's no delete button, where things don't always resolve cleanly. Real connection is uncomfortable sometimes. It requires you to be present without knowing what comes next. And the more we retreat into controlled, curated, low-friction digital interaction, the more that discomfort starts to feel like too much to ask. So we settle. Not consciously. Nobody decides to be lonely. But little by little, the interactions that once would have felt thin start to feel normal. The bar for what counts as connection quietly lowers. And the real thing, the messy, reciprocal, genuinely vulnerable thing, starts to feel almost foreign. We've traded depth for convenience so many times, we've forgotten what we were giving up. None of this is an argument against the internet. The internet has given us things that matter. It has let people find their people across impossible distances. It has given a voice to those who had none. It has connected the isolated, the marginalized, the overlooked, people who would have been truly, completely alone in any previous era. That's real. That's not nothing. But those benefits and these costs can both be true at the same time. That's usually how complicated things work. The harder question, the one worth sitting with, is this: what do we actually want from each other? Not what we're willing to settle for. Not what's easiest, or most convenient, or least likely to make us feel exposed. But what we actually need, at that quiet, honest level that surfaces at 11 p.m. when the scrolling finally stops and the room gets still. Because the loneliness that the internet made invisible didn't go away. It learned to hide. Behind notifications and group chats and the warm glow of a screen that always has something new to offer you. It learned to wait. And it waits precisely in the moments when you feel the most connected, when you're looking at a life that looks full and wondering quietly why it still feels like something is missing. Maybe that feeling isn't a glitch. Maybe it's the most honest signal you have. You don't need more connection. You need the kind that actually reaches you.